Hello everyone, Cutting Tool Designer here of part 2 of finishing the front of the workshop. Here I'm showing you how I'm attaching permanently the panels to the plywood underneath, using a drill with a countersink. Start in from the side and then tilt it at an angle of about 30 to 40 degrees. Create like a pocket screw. And then here I'm just adding in 1.5-inch drywall screws and driving them in until they're recessed below the surface. And again, some additional shots of another panel. Now I'm just using some sandpaper to clean up the sides, remove any burrs that may have been created from the drilling operation. Then I'm using some Elmer's wood filler to cover the brad nail areas. And I'm also adding in some putty to the screw surfaces to seal them off. Here I'm getting ready to use the miter saw to cut the cove molding. Of course, it helps if it's plugged in. Of course, always be safe, wear safety glasses. Just trimming a length for one of the verticals on the outside of the panel areas. Now here I'm trimming off one end so that I can use a master that I've already pre-cut that's slightly oversized from the panels. And I'm just marking it. And I flip the cove molding around the other direction when I cut the other 45 to get it to match properly. Trim off the end of another piece. Use the master to measure it and mark. Flip it around, set the miter, and yes, my fingers are plenty far away from the blade. Here I'm installing one of the cove moldings on the outside of the panel area. The last piece is chamfered at one end and then marked and measured and cut to fit. And again I'm using wood filler to cover up the brad nail holes. I'm just using my finger because it's easier to get into the curvature of the cove molding. Before I put the cove molding on the panels, I'm going ahead and putting another coat of primer, or putting a first coat of primer on the panels themselves. It'll seal up all the edges, and then of course the surface is being primed for paint. being sure I get in all the nooks and crannies of the V-carved area. Now putting the cove molding around the actual panels themselves. I've already installed the bottom piece. These have all been pre-cut and measured to fit. Again, putting in some more wood filler to cover the brad nails. And the tedious task again of sanding down all the wood filler to smooth it out. I used a 120 grit sandpaper, just kind of rolled up so I can get it to the contours. Lots of sanding. Here I'm taking a brush and getting off as much of the sanding dust as I can. And then finishing up with a shop vac to make sure everything's as clean as possible to finish up putting on some primer. And finally, the last coat of primer to seal all the wood filler and prepare it for painting. And that's the end of part 2. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for part 3, where we finish up the final touches on the front of the shop. And please subscribe.